Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Iskia, and I'm one of the event planners for the Redmond Reactor Space. And before we get started today, I've got a few things to go over. So if you could please take a moment and read our code of conduct, which we've also posted in the chat. And basically what that's saying is that we seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and please try to stay on topic. We're going to be sharing useful links throughout the chat, so please keep an eye out for that. And we want to let you know that this session is going to be recorded and will be available on demand in about 24 to 48 hours, and that can be found on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. That brings us to today's session, scheduled to run approximately 1 hour, and there'll be time for questions throughout. So with that said, I'd like to hand it over to our speakers for introductions.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. And welcome to Ask the Expert session on data warehouse migrations in Microsoft Fabric. I'm Nandini Srinivasan, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and I'll be your moderator today. Joining me are some of the brilliant minds behind Fabric's data warehouse. So let's kick things off with a quick round of introductions. Panelists, if you don't mind sharing your name, your role, and what part of migration in data warehousing are you focused on? Charles, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Hey, folks. My name is Charles Webb, and I'm a Principal PM lead for the Migration Assistant, which we'll be talking about today.
Joanna?
Hey everyone, Joanna Pogowetsky. I'm one of the product managers that leads a number of the features you hopefully enjoy, such as the workload management capabilities, our query optimization, our ingestion capabilities, data recovery, and many more. Looking forward to the session.
Tino?
Looks like Charles and Joanna are in the same room. Hi, I'm Tino. I just joined Microsoft about a month ago, and I am Director of Product Management for Fabric Data Warehouse. So I work very closely with Joanna and Charles on all the goodness that we provide in the platform.
Awesome. And we also have more experts with us on the chat today. So huge thanks to Priyanka, Keralyn, Dawn, and John for being experts in the chat. We're thrilled to have so many of you registered for this topic. I know it's top of mind for many of you. So we'll be answering your questions live. Feel free to drop them in the chat. And in the meantime, we'll start off with a quick overview or a quick concept of what data warehouse is and how you can go about the migration. So Charles, I'll hand it over to you. Charles, you're on mute.
All right. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining. We really, really appreciate it. We've got the whole Microsoft product team here, folks on video, folks on the chat. We're going to talk to you about how you can accelerate to innovate, how you can migrate to the Fabric Data Warehouse. We're going to start by talking just about you, what you're experiencing, what we've heard from customers like you, and then how we're making migrations and data warehousing simplified in the era of SaaS and AI. So let's talk a little bit about what we're hearing from leadership, from executives, and from companies. And what we're really hearing is there's not a lot of confidence in delivering data and AI and getting analytics value at scale across many different enterprises. So this quote, this survey really tells us that you're still struggling to do analytics and get analytical value at scale, no matter where you are and what level of maturity your organization is at. And when you think about the data estate and the landscape today, you're always going to have these common questions about like, what data do I have? Can I access the data that I need? Can I enable faster business insights? And can I make decisions with data instead of hope? Lastly, how can I make sure that when I'm making those decisions, the data that I'm using is trustworthy and I'm in compliance? I'm always secure no matter what. And when you look at Microsoft Fabric, when we were building this capability, we really looked at these types of quotes from customers, these needs, and we said, how can we deliver a ROI? How can we deliver an amazing benefit to customers? And how can we make sure that that investment provides a really quick payback? And you can see some of those statistics here. So when you think about what Microsoft Fabric is, we're focused on 4 key pillars. It's uniting and unifying siloed and fragmented data. It's enabling cost efficiency and cost optimization. It's providing infinite SaaS type scalability. And then lastly, it's helping you move faster with automation, with AI, and analytical experiences for any skill level persona. So when you look at Microsoft Fabric, it's an analytics suite, which means that we've got capabilities from data ingestion to real-time analytics, databases, but then we also support workloads and practitioners, whether you're a data engineer, an analytics engineer, or whether you're a data scientist or BI analyst. And underneath everything that we do in Fabric, you're always going to have AI experiences built in, not bolt-on, but truly built into the way that you work. And then you've got lakehouse architecture, which means that we've got all the data always stored in open format. And the highlight of this capability is that the data warehouse is an analytical database with that lakehouse architecture. We store all of that data in an open format. We give you all the guarantees of a proven catalog coming from SQL Server and all the SQL capabilities that you know and love. And we know from talking with you that SQL is sort of the lingua franca of analytics. So let's talk about what the data warehouse and Fabric enables you to do that's a little bit different than what you can do anywhere else. And the first place we'll start is how it powers innovation. And we're really focused on how can we help you drive business growth with an evergreen SaaS analytics platform. In essence, gone are the days of upgrades and past infrastructure and managing consoles. This is an experience where it's really easy to just log in and get started. You can sign up in 5 seconds, and then we can generate some value for you in about 5 minutes. So that wow factor is a huge aspect of how you can power innovation for any skill level persona. And when we talk about any skill level persona, we're really thinking about how do we increase productivity for anyone within the organization. So whether you're a no-code developer, a SQL developer, we've got all these different capabilities and modalities, but also we've got AI infused to make your jobs and your analytics a breeze. Now, at the same time, because it's a SaaS capability, we're always optimizing the engine and the performance. So as you continue to develop, we're always going to just make the analytics experiences faster. And over the last year, we've made your queries 50% faster with nothing you needed to do. We're just always tuning. And because this is a suite and it's built into the greater good of Microsoft, this also means that as you use your business applications like Teams or Office, this is just seamlessly built into the experience. And so when I think about Microsoft Fabric and we talk with customers, I really love this quote from Kantar, where they were able to get started with the Fabric data warehouse really, really quickly and actually do a full-blown migration in the type of speed that's not possible in other capabilities. So we talked about powering innovation and how easy it is to embed Microsoft Fabric and how you can bet on an evergreen SaaS environment. So I won't drain this slide. We talked about how you can centrally manage data, foster a data-driven culture, and take action when you can enable everyone within the organization to use data warehousing capabilities and to make decisions with data. I love this quote for that reason. And then we've also talked about how we always improve performance with industry-leading performance at scale and helping you to reduce that time to value with a SaaS capability. And keep in mind, things like Power BI are just built in. So if you love clicky, draggy, droppy, like a lot of you here do, you've got the Power BI capabilities at your fingertips in the Fabric data warehouse. Now, the last aspect is about productivity gains. And you know with the era of AI that there's a huge opportunity for automation and a quicker time to value no matter what you're doing. And the Fabric warehouse is a huge beneficiary of this. And what we're seeing is a huge increase in data engineering and productivity just by using the Fabric capabilities. Because again, they're made for any skill level persona, and AI is not an afterthought. It's truly like infused into what we're doing. So let's take a look and see what that really looks like inside of the Fabric data warehouse.
To offer. They immediately noticed that the warehouse has built-in capabilities for ETL, no-code and pro-code SQL query development, monitoring, modeling and reporting with Power BI, as well as support for their favorite tools like Visual Studio Code and SQL Server Management Studio. And last but not least, Copilot, a personalized AI assistant to ask questions about the newly migrated warehouse. Contoso wants to validate that their data has been properly loaded into their tables from their migration. They open a new SQL query and notice that they can simply use Copilot to help them complete the query. They leave a comment directly in their SQL Query tab asking Copilot to find the row count of all their tables. And it instantly generates a SQL Query suggestion, which they can now accept and execute to find their answer. Now, they want to do a quick scan of all the gray colored products in their inventory. They start writing a query and see that the SQL Query editor has support for all their favorite live templates. They start with one and can easily fill out the parameters. While typing, they also see that the SQL Query editor fully supports IntelliSense and syntax highlighting experiences. And to top it all off, they execute the SQL query seamlessly with a keyboard shortcut. Now that Contoso has validated that their data has been migrated successfully, they are ready to start analyzing trends in their data with Copilot. And Copilot automatically comes up with some interesting categories for them to dive deeper into. They read the question description and decide to ask it. And Copilot instantly returns a query for them where they can simply insert it into their query editor, review it to make sure that it looks good, and run it. And ta-da, they instantly have answers to their business questions in seconds without having to write any code. They can even take it one step further and instantly create Power BI reports from their SQL query results in seconds and even save them to their workspace to share later. The team notices that they can also use notebooks to continue their query development. They open a new notebook, which has full support for T-SQL, to continue writing their SQL queries, and they can create visualizations from their SQL query results in minutes. Notebooks allow them to also integrate with their data engineering items to interact directly with their warehouse data, as well as develop in other coding languages like Spark and Python.
All right, so you just saw how we make data warehousing a breeze in the era of AI, and you saw how quickly it is and easy really it is to analyze your data, use different modalities, and you saw the benefits of a lakehouse architecture, which again, the data warehouse has and has had from day one. But now let's talk a little bit about how we are making migrations much simpler, much easier in this era of AI and SaaS capabilities. We have built an integrated migration experience. And what this means is gone are the days of having to install utilities, extract code, and have to work through a number of different areas of documentation, multiple different applications, and really complex migrations. We've really worked to simplify this and build it into Fabric so it's integrated, it's intelligent, and we're going to give you the capabilities to get code conversion, advice, and even do data migration in a single pane of glass. Now, our goal here is really just to help you enhance your productivity, get you that industry-leading performance, and help you power that innovation at scale. I want to pause here and just make sure we're kind of covering all the questions in the chat. Do we have any interesting big questions here, Nandini or Tino?
Yeah, I think the biggest question was about the migration, like how customers can actually access this migration experience. And so I think you're leading right into it. If you can just give us a quick view of how they can access the migration experience within the product without installing these tools, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. So what I'm going to actually do here is I think we might as well give a live demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share a workspace that I just created. And can you folks see that all right? Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to do a quick migration. I'm going to show you how easy it is to move your data, your code over to Fabric and then take advantage of some of the capabilities we just discussed. So inside of Fabric, you're now going to have this new migrate button in the tab in any workspace. And so I'm going to click on this button. And you're going to see data engineering items, data models, and you're also going to have the ability to click on a DAC pack. Now, a DAC pack is a capability that's supported for any SQL product. So we support both SQL Server as well as Synapse right now. And what this is going to enable you to do is move to the future, move to the SaaS data warehousing capabilities inside of Fabric. So as you can see here, how we start is you're first going to work through this wizard. And after you're done with the wizard, we're going to help you actually migrate your data after the code. So the first thing I need to do is I need to upload a DAC pack. And to do that, I have this AdventureWorks DAC pack here. Now the next step is I need to give this thing a name. So I'll actually call this, AdventureWorks. And this is just my target data warehouse. And then lastly, it's going to tell me a bit of information about what's about to happen. You can see that I'm uploading this stackpack file. You can see that I'm going to land it in this workspace that I pre-provisioned. And lastly, you can see that the name of this new warehouse that I'm migrating over is going to be called AdventureWorks. So these are all the basics. Now, right now, what you're seeing is a couple different statuses. We've started the migration. We created that target destination. Now we're actually loading all the source schemas, translating the objects for you, and applying all those changes as well. So that's right. You not only get a translation of all your code and an assessment offline because all of this is done through that DACPack facility, but we're actually going to apply that to a target data warehouse so that if you do want to continue going forward, you get both that assessment, as you can see here in this sidecar, as well as the ability to keep working. So if I expand this, what you see is we're able to migrate most of the objects. And in this demo, we'll have a few things we'll need to fix, so we'll work through that. But I can also see the migrated objects as well. You can see all the adjustments and updates that we've made, and that is amazing. But what I might want to do is I might want to go back to the data warehouse and actually want to start working through the problems. So to do that, I have this fix problems area. You can see here that we've already copied all the metadata. So the next step is now we need to fix the problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this. And what you can see here is that the migration assistant is telling me the status. We've already migrated. I can see the different things that we need to fix, as well as things that's already completed. And then I have this perspective of what are my primary objects. These are things that we've already ordered. We use intelligence to figure out what are the downstream dependencies for you. And then dependent objects, things that are dependent on these primary objects, say views or procedures, what have you. And you can see here that in this case, the migration assistant worked really, really well. However, we have one thing we need to fix. If I hover over it, it tells me that I had a translation error. I can see and expand more of those details. So when I do that and I actually click on that object, what I can see is I've got to create table, statement, and there's a data type that we don't support directly. However, we do support querying XML through functions. And so what I'm able to do here is simply use AI to work through this issue. And so all I have to do is click on Fix Query Errors, and I'm going to get a fix for this problem seamlessly for me. And what's amazing about this is I also could have gone to additional steps and done a lot of research myself, but this intelligence is just built in. And so now all I need to do after this is fix this is it's telling me now run this query to validate it. And now what I do is I click on the run. And now you can see that this executed successfully. Now, the next step in this process, as you can see, we executed that. We gave you intelligence to help you fix that problem. Now we've actually validated that and applied it to your data warehouse. And you can see in the Explorer, everything's now completed. So if I expand this, I can see all the objects that have landed. But the next step for me, if I close this out, is to go back. And you can see here it's saying go back to the migration steps to go to the next step, which is now I need to copy the data. So when I click on that, again, this is guided. And I can use a copy job to now move data into the data warehouse with ease. So you can see you can also copy data yourself, have all those experiences like we described for copying data directly. So I can use T-SQL. I can also use get data pipelines, which are a no-code modality, and a wizard to orchestrate. And then we also have data flows Gen 2 for more complex transformations. Again, have a no-code and pro-code modality in there. But I'm just going to click on use a copy job. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create this thing, and I'm going to call it legacy data load job. And then when I click on this, what's happening is we're actually creating this copy job, this easy facility to help me move my data from my existing database to now the Fabric data warehouse. So in this case, I can connect to, say, this Azure SQL data server here. I can put in the connection string, and I can say, this is my legacy DB. And then I can either use an existing connection or create a brand new one. So I'll create a brand new one here. And I'll call it, legacy DB connection. And for this, right, I actually can both use these facilities, but now all I need to do is change this to organizational account. I can actually put this back in there if I want. But now the next step is I need to sign in. So let me just sign in here really quick. And now what we're doing is just connecting to that source database. Once we make that connection, the next step I'll need to do is select the different tables that I want to get access to. So you can see here a little status, but there's no need for me to go to multiple different places. So pretty cool functionality. We'll let this load. While this is loading and making a connection to my source database, any questions on the?
Yeah. So we had one question, but I think we need the user to elaborate a little bit more. They also wanted a demo on how pipeline is developed and transformations. So I'm not exactly sure what.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? I can do something better. I can actually show you the pipeline. So I was in that copy job. It's a very similar functionality from copy job to pipelines. If I zoom out, I can go back to the data warehouse, right? And you saw here that I could use that copy job, but I actually can also use a pipeline. So if I click on new data pipeline, we're going to generate one of these on the fly as well. And I'll just leave it, the default name is pipeline 1. And what we're doing again here is we're creating that pipeline on the fly. Now, a pipeline has multiple experiences. We also have a copy data wizard and assistant here as well. So what I can do is I can select a number of different data sources that are available to me. You can see here, it's a pretty big list. We also have files, databases, of course, the Microsoft Power Platform, Azure, online services. But the copy data assistant that's built into the pipelines allow me to just move data, and it kind of helps me do all the same steps I was doing in a copy job. Now, if I close this, you also see that I have a bunch of other things that are available to me. So similar to the Azure Data Factory capabilities, I can create jobs, orchestrate multiple different things that are happening. I can invoke another pipeline, or I can even ask Copilot to go build something for me. So I can have commands for ingesting data, transforming data, and even summarizing existing pipelines that I may be inheriting or collaborating with different teammates on. So the pipeline capability is also there for me. And you can see there's a wide variety of different things I can do, data flows, orchestrating notebooks, maybe it's a T-SQL notebook and stored procedures, script activities. I can add if conditions, waits for each loops, connect to web APIs, send emails, like all the goodness of pipelines are really here.
Great. So I think another related question to the migration is, it's super easy to get started, but what is the prep work that is needed prior to using the wizard for migration? And so the slick back guy asks if there's a checklist or things that they need to be aware of before they start this migration process.
Yeah, that's a really great question. We have a bunch of documentation on there for how you can get started, best practices and guides. Really, to get started from the Fabric data warehouse and web point of view, all you need to do is extract a DAC pack from your source. But what we recommend is always working with your Microsoft account teams and go read our documentation. It's really awesome. It talks about different strategies you can take for migration. It talks about different approaches, which may make sense within your organization and to meet your needs. But I would suggest the guidance and documentation that we have. And we'll add a link in the chat.
We'll add some links in the chat as well. So we'll keep the questions going. I think Rudresh Mehta asks about costing. So basically trying to understand costs when you're making a decision such as migration, costs are pretty important. So how should customers think about what SKU they need to migrate to, estimating costs, things like that. Charles, Joanna, who would like to take this one?
So I have a point of view on this,
Yeah.
and I'll start, but then I'd love to hear from my awesome teammates, Joanna and Tino. In Fabric, and I'll go back to the Fabric UI really quickly. You notice that there's this trial. And what we do inside of Fabric is we provide these 60-day trials. And we provide them pretty liberal for your organization to be able to leverage and use. And so what I would suggest is in the era of SaaS and AI, you have an opportunity to kind of prove it to yourself. And I would say within an organization, I would start for $0. I'd go prove the value over the course of 60 days. We've had customers that have been able to migrate, generate significant value for themselves, share it with a bunch of their colleagues, and continue to move downstream using those free trials. That's an amazing place to start. If you're already using Fabric, you're already using Power BI, right? You have an opportunity to also get started using your existing capacities, but these aren't, mutually exclusive. I would always say take advantage of the free trials to start, create value, and then expand from there. But Joanna, Tino, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, everything Charles said is spot on. The only thing I would add is to keep in mind that Fabric uses a dynamically scaled solution. So think about it this way: you're paying for a unified capacity rather than the separate services that you could be using. And customers typically experience an improved total cost of ownership just based on that. The other thing I'll point out is that we are planning to launch a new Fabric SKU estimator tool very, very soon. So do keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and excellent work, Charles, by the way. The only thing I would add is, why move to Fabric Data Warehouse? And I think if you take a look at some of the papers that have been published, if you take a look at some of the architectures, Fabric Data Warehouse is really a very modern architecture, right? Built from scratch within the last few years. And so kind of what Joanna pointed out, you get these amazing benefits of really modern data warehousing semantics, right? Things like separation, storage, compute. Charles mentioned the open data lake architecture. So when you move to the Fabric Data Warehouse, not only are you getting a really high level of service, right? Like the serverless delivery model, but you're also just getting a really, really amazing capabilities, amazing performance, amazing efficiency overall. So I know migrations are difficult. We're here for you with tooling and with people and expertise and whatever else is possible. But I think in the long term, it's certainly worth it to consider this.
Awesome. So let's go to a couple of questions coming from Reddit. And there's a bunch of questions around lakehouse versus warehouse, how to make that decision, how to, in terms of that architecture for a medallion architecture, things like that. So, Tino, I know you're passionate about this area. Do you want to throw some light on lakehouse versus warehouse and how customers considering a migration, what should they keep in mind?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting question. Lakehouse has really become a mainstream architecture in the last couple of years in many ways, thanks to where the industry has gone. And we were one of the first vendors to be ahead of the curve here, right? We architected our data warehouse to be a lakehouse. Now, lakehouses in general are using object storage for all things metadata. And I think that can contribute to a little bit of like a narrow data warehousing story. What we did actually is we kind of combined the best of lakehouse object storage driven architecture with what a classic cloud data warehouse is good at, right? Which is transactions and metadata management. So we really give you kind of like the best of both worlds here, right? You don't have to sacrifice when you're moving to our lakehouse based data warehouse. Hopefully that explains it. Charles, Joanna, do you want to add anything else to it?
Yeah, and just everything Tino said spot on. The only thing I would add to that is really the decision can come down to something as simple as, if you love Spark and you want to do your ingestion and, serving through Spark, Lakehouse could be a good landing spot. Could even serve using the warehouse. That's totally depending on where your skill set's lie. But if you're a SQL shop, you're a lover of SQL, T-SQL, you're coming from on-prem SQL implementations and other data warehousing solutions, then you're going to want to land in a warehouse. And it really does, come down to something as simple as that. If you're ultimately coming from SQL, you want to land in a warehouse. If you ultimately want to do, say you're bronze silver, for example, using Spark, you could definitely land in the lakehouse. And then you could always use the SQL endpoint, which is just the SQL engine on top of the lakehouse to perform your serving. Or you could, do it all in a warehouse. It's totally, all of that where your skill sets lie.
Great. So we have another question from Hamid Pirahesh. When I go from classic lakehouse with SQL Server to lakehouse and Fabric, would the same SQL Server work? Or do they have to migrate their SQL programs?
So I can take this one. So it is a evolution of the SQL Server engine you know and love, which means a few things. One, it's optimized for cloud scale, massive parallel processing and analytics, which just means no matter you have small data, big data, it's going to work. It's going to be blazing fast. The other thing and the other advantage here is that if you have all your legacy applications, you're typically using the SQL Server drivers. Using your additional applications, your old applications, and adding new applications is as simple as upgrading those drivers. So that's the beauty of this being part of that SQL Server ecosystem and being evolution of that SQL Server engine. Your apps can still function, and they can function in a more secure sort of modality going into SaaS. So yes, you could have an opportunity to keep using those existing apps, and also you're still within that ecosystem of all the other apps that use SQL Server.
While we're waiting for more questions, keep the questions coming, everyone. So I'll go over some general questions that we've seen from different customers, right? So Charles, Joanna, Tino, what are some common blockers you're seeing during these customer migrations, and how can customers actually be proactive about addressing these blockers? What are some hiccups or challenges that they face, and how can they be proactive about addressing them?
I can start. So one thing that we've seen, which we've made a ton of progress on since we went into GA, was there were some T-SQL parity features that weren't there on day one, which are there now. So customers can rest assured that a lot of the things that perhaps in the very early days of Fabric Warehouse weren't necessarily there. We have a lot of really exciting capabilities that are coming in the next month or two. Things like merge support, which I know a lot of customers are super excited about. We recently announced result set caching, which is a huge performance advantage. So highly encourage customers to have a look into result set cache, which is currently in public preview. And we're constantly listening. And that's the thing that we want to make sure that our customers know. We're always listening to your feedback. We're always trying to observe and make sure we're prioritizing the right thing. So if there's something that you feel is missing, let us know. But we've been extremely, attentive and perceptive to the sentiment out there. So not sure, Charles or Tina, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Go for it, Charles.
Yeah, I would just say, there's a lot of people and process aspects to these things that make change hard. And when we think about what makes change easier, it's about meeting people where they are. What we try to do in Fabric is, one, make sure the cost of entry is $0 with free trials. Second, we try to make sure that no matter what skill level developer you are, you can use our capabilities. Then lastly, we try to make it fun and integrated. Most customers we talk to don't want to be plumbers. They don't want to stitch things together. And in Fabric, the beauty of this integrated analytics suite is whether you need to do data ingestion, like I shared, you need to do data warehousing, even if you want the clicky, draggy, droppy of Power BI, it's all one interconnected ecosystem. And when you need to extend that to your favorite tools like Excel or Teams or Microsoft 365, it's also still a click away. So we're really trying to just make your life easier. And when you think about change, right, when change is easier, that usually makes things a little bit more effective. But you can't underestimate the people and process aspects and meeting people where they are. Tino, what do you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No matter how much tooling we build, no matter how much capabilities we build, I think migrations are just complicated, right? You're running in a data warehouse. You're typically running a whole lot of different workloads, right? You could have dashboards, you have transformation, you can have ad hoc analytics, AI, and so on and so forth. Different technologies just behave differently. So very much, second what Charles said, migrations require a lot of just organizational change overall, especially when you're moving to a more modern, like a cloud topology with, consumption-based pricing, with, high level of scalability and lack of resource economy that you might be used to in your previous technology. So a lot of those things kind of empower the organization to do so much more. But with great power comes great responsibility, right? So you might have to change how you're operating as an organization. I've worked with organizations that empower self-service analytics for their departments, right? And they're introducing chargebacks. So, if the finance department wants to do analytics, they pay a certain amount of money. If they want to do faster analytics, they pay more, right? These are like new capabilities, new ways of running data organizations that a modern architecture like our Fabric Data Warehouse enables. So these are just some of the things to think through. And obviously we're here, the broader Microsoft organization is here to help you with that.
And migration, 100% I agree, is a complicated topic, very customized to the organization and what they have, in terms of assets. So what sort of customer momentum are we seeing right now? Maybe we have some success stories, or, how can we, can you share something about what you're seeing right now? Charles, maybe to you.
Yeah. I have slides, so I can talk about that. But, rather than sharing slides, I can just start from the very beginning and just share anecdotally what I've heard, and I can share some quotes. What we're hearing from customers is in this era of SaaS and cloud, friction and barriers from a technology aspect are greatly reduced. So our job is to make that as easy as possible, as simple as possible, as quick as possible. And what we're seeing is hundreds of customers using our tooling to make that move. Now, the beauty of SaaS and cloud is you don't necessarily have to use our tooling. We have a great ecosystem of partners out there. And it's also, not that difficult to do a migration yourself. But our job is to kind of make that as easy as possible. And so if I switch to and share my screen again, the thing that I think is really, really neat is we had a customer that was with us in the private preview, and they were able to migrate extremely quickly. Now, when you think about a migration, this isn't something that is synonymous with the word quick. But when we look at, data warehousing at scale, and we look at some of the customer testimonials, right? Like the thing that I really appreciate is our customers are telling us it's not that difficult to migrate. And so, I think I shared earlier with the data migrations and some of the capabilities, right? Like, hey, look, in addition to all these benefits of migration, and you folks hopefully can see my screen. In addition to all the benefits of migration, hey, it's more cost effective. You can do more. One of the leads at Kantar was just saying, hey, look, instead of this taking months or years, this is something we're able to do in, fundamentally a day, and then, operationalize in weeks. And so this is kind of like the new reality in SaaS. And this is what we're really pushing for from a customer perspective.
Amazing. So we have a question from Kalyan AK. They're currently using Azure Synapse Analytics. So they want to know what areas should they be focused on. For example, they have the data warehouse, but they also have data flows, pipelines, external tables in Synapse, CI/CD pipelines, and what should they be mindful about when they're doing this migration? It's a broader question beyond just the data warehousing.
I have some thoughts. Obviously, we are a vendor, so we think about technology, but I would say I'd first start with the people, and I'd understand the processes, why people are using what are those opportunities to create new value, because you don't typically do a migration unless there's something you're not getting today. And once you kind of understand that value prop and where you're going, I think customers should think about migrations from the perspective of a proof of value. So once you've kind of plotted and understood where you're going and what you need to go hit and what those checkboxes are, work towards that. The beauty of our migration capabilities is you can kind of take these things step by step. So one cheat code, if you will, for migrations is to think about workloads and take these things in a piecemeal approach where you can kind of prove out the value step by step. So for example, you could look at data flows as one opportunity, right? We have data flows Gen 2 in Fabric. The other opportunity is you could look at the data warehousing aspect. But I would suggest doing these as different steps and then slowly uniting and making sure that initial checklist of value is realized, right? In some cases, right, we have customers that might decide, hey, I really love past modalities for data integration. So I'm going to continue to use Azure Data Factory. Simultaneously, I really love the promises of the Fabric data warehouse. It's what my business users need. So I'm going to move that aspect. And then, wow, I didn't realize there's actually a Fabric data factory that I can also leverage, and it's even more deeply connected. And then I can do that migration next. Now that I've understood this enables other, engineers to start using the data warehousing and other ETL capabilities. So I think taking it step by step and kind of like charting out the workloads and that plan is a really critical aspect. But Tino, Joanna, what do y'all think?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing Joanna's thoughts as well. I've seen in the past what's really effective, especially in complex environments, is to pick something that can demonstrate high return on investment right away, right? It could be dashboards, it could be transformations, it could be some application that you have running, right? Something that's that you think is the easiest thing to move, right? So that's one, right? Like, and kind of going piecewise. Don't think about it as like all or nothing, right? You probably want to kind of pull things out and put them into the new system one by one. The other is you could simply drag and drop, like Charles said, into a new environment. But it's also a good opportunity for you to take a look at, see if you can modernize the approach overall, right? See if there's some bits that you can improve while you're doing this. So it's a good opportunity. There's a lot of change going on, so it's a good opportunity to think if there's ways to do things better.
Awesome. So we have a question on from Sham Kant. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Some customers are using Azure Databricks from a compute standpoint with Fabric. So is it possible to replace Databricks and keep the data lake architecture in place? Who wants to take this?
Short answer is absolutely, it's possible. If you're looking to just leverage the compute, it depends what aspects of Databricks you're using, but an easy way to get started is to shortcut to your existing Databricks storage. It may be in Azure or wherever it is. Fire off some Spark Compute over the top, and away you go. It can be as simple as that, but it really would depend on, what exactly you're doing in Databricks and things like that. But the short answer is you can definitely shortcut to your existing Databricks implementation from a storage perspective and get started that way.
Yeah, I think the key, there's two things I want to say. One is we are Lakehouse architecture, so you get that as well if that's what you like about Databricks. The other is, of course, the breadth of our platform, right? We're not just Fabric Data Warehouse, right? There's Spark, there's AI, right? There's real time. There's all kinds of things within Fabric. There's transactional systems, right? So I think moving Databricks to Fabric Data Warehouse, it is a very simplistic term. Yes, let's go do that. But again, take a look at everything that Fabric has, and you might be able to decide to kind of break things apart.
Awesome. So let's get back a little bit on costs. And I see you have a slide up, right? So Rudresh Mehta asks, they're using Gen 2 for data warehousing and then Synapse separately and Power BI. What are the cost benefits to switch to Fabric and shift everything from these individual, components? So I don't think there's one straight answer for this, right? But is there anything you'd like to add?
I think Tino kind of touched on this. When you move to a SaaS topology across things that are infinitely scalable and they're reading, data from the lake, you get a lot of cost optimization opportunities and also scale opportunities. So I'll give you a few examples. On the cost side, right? Typically, if you're using Synapse, you're doing a lot of processing in Synapse 1 to then serve things downstream for BI. Because the data warehouse is a lake-centric architecture, all those tables are also available in the lake. This means that Power BI, that additional refresh that you had to set up, that additional compute you had to set up in Synapse is gone. Now Power BI reads that same data directly from the lake. That engine's just unlocked. The same goes for a lot of other scenarios because, right, Synapse is much more efficient. Queries are just much cheaper to run. And at the same time, they're also faster. So when you look at that value equation, cheaper, faster is typically better. But, as Nandini mentioned, it also depends on, the scenarios you're running, your workloads. But generally, right, when you have, lakehouse architecture, you get all these advantages in terms of cost, scale, compute, and time to value. So that's what I look at here. When you saw the slides earlier and we said, hey, look, there's on average at least a 30% cost reduction. That's just based on the list price of SKU to SKU comparisons. But when we actually look at customers realizing costs, it's much more aggressive. It's much more advantageous. It's much more economical. So I would say go give it a try. You can always look at these types of things for 60 days and try real world usage and then see what that looks like in the real world.
Just to add to that, I think Tino mentioned return on investment, right? Do that quick calculation and see what is your return on investment migrating to such tools, but also consider the total cost of ownership. When you have disparate tools, you're spending a lot of time integrating them and maintaining them separately versus having everything in one place in a SaaS environment that greatly reduces that integration work that people have to do. So, with a lot of questions, and big thanks again to the experts on the chat who've been plugging away at asking more detailed questions, follow ups, things like that. So, Hamid Pirahesh asks extraction of data from unstructured data, such as business forms, through AI or LLM, and they want to create structures or semi structured data and put that in Fabric. Who is invoking LLMs for migration with GPU support? So maybe you can have the question up on screen, ask you if you don't mind, and we'd love to understand a little bit more. Yeah, it's the next question, sorry, from extraction of data from unstructured data through AI LLM and then creating structures or semi-structured data, and they want to put it in Fabric. So maybe they're asking how they want to go, how to go about this process. I think that's the question.
I can start addressing that.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at Fabric Data Warehouse, we last month announced a number of AI functions. Right underneath the hood, they are leveraging Fabric's Azure's AI infrastructure, and obviously for inference, GPUs are quite good, so they are leveraging GPUs on the hood. That's kind of an implementation detail, right? You want like capabilities. So we do have a number of AI functions within the Fabric Data Warehouse that do some of the stuff, right? Then you can take a look at what Spark is doing. Our friends at Postgres have launched similar things, and then of course, like there's our data engineering friends who allow you access to the Python ecosystem, who has a bunch of this type of stuff. Charles, Joanna, maybe you can help as well.
Yeah, you can use, like Tino mentioned, a lot of things that are built into the data warehouse. And when your unstructured needs expand past that, we have the lakehouse. And within the lakehouse, you have the wide variety of different data engineering tool sets that are available, some that are LLM powered and GPU powered, like what Tino suggested. We also have functions that you can use, but it goes even further. We're also adding, AI-based transforms so that you can do things like, hey, I've got text and I need to translate this text into a different language. And then in place, I then want to do some additional post-processing on it. I have videos now, and I want to do the same thing, turn those videos into text. These are capabilities that we announced actually at the last FabCon, and they're rolling out over the course of the next few months. So you can also do this stuff, of course, as part of Azure, using the Azure OpenAI service, using Foundry, et cetera. And that all integrates seamlessly with the Lakehouse, the warehouse, and all those other capabilities. But we're bringing some more native SaaS-like kind of drag and drop experiences to Fabric as well. So you're going to kind of have a wide variety of capabilities. Think about like when you have information workers, you're going to have Office, PowerPoint, Excel. Fabric is very similar to that. You're going to have many tools you can leverage based on your skill set and the way you want to work: pro code, no code, AI first, etc.
And so for those who are still with us, stay tuned, stay till the end. We have a special surprise that we'll be plugging in. So look forward to the end of the session. With that, I'll go to another question that's in Reddit. And people want to know what are some performance tuning tips post migration once they come into Fabric, what are some performance tuning tips that they should consider?
So the great thing about migrating to Fabric is that our goal with Fabric Warehouse is to be optimally performant out of the box. So if you're coming from Synapse, for example, Synapse dedicated SQL pools, you're probably used to doing a lot of performance tuning, having to make choices around, what do I use round robin distribution, hash distribution, choices like that, which you no longer have to make because the Fabric Warehouse has inbuilt optimizations like we do V-ordering by default. So all data that gets ingested automatically has the benefits that you may be familiar with the VertiPack engine with, run length encoding, bit packing, dictionary encoding, all out of the box when you ingest into the Fabric Warehouse. When it comes to, choosing distributions, we're optimal with our default distribution. We don't require our customers to have to do that advanced performance tuning that they may have had to do in the past because we are a SaaS service and our promise to our customer is, hey, we're taking all of this admin and maintenance away from you so you can focus on the things that really matter. Other optimizations that you get out of the box with the Fabric Warehouse, we have automated optimized storage maintenance directly out of the box. So for example, if you're used to doing things like running the optimize command to do compaction and checkpointing and all those maintenance tasks like, re-indexing or defragmentation, these are all things of the past. This is, this is no longer what we want our customers to have to worry about. So we do that out of the box for customers. We automatically compact. We automatically do garbage collection or vacuum. Some of you may be familiar with that term. IDEA is optimized out of the box. We also have some very advanced and intelligent workload management capabilities where, again, we intelligently route your queries to isolated workload groups, which means that we're already thinking about performance and optimization through isolating your workloads automatically without you having to do any, granular configuration and things like that. Now, we do recognize that customers will see performance improvements with, features like data clustering, because data clustering is going to allow customers to perform file elimination. And that's something that we definitely see a lot of value in, and that's something that's landing in the next few months. We did a pre-announcement of that in our previous conference in Las Vegas. That's something that will be a knob that is surfaced to a customer, which has potential to have huge, huge gains. So the key message here is, hey, we don't want you to do this performance tuning. We just want you to enjoy the amazing performance of Fabric Warehouse out of the box with a few knobs and tweaks as needed.
Awesome.
One thing I'm going to add to that is that even with the places where we do need to actually twist some knobs, we're working on making that easier for you, right? And you think about what Gen AI and large language models allow us to do, right? So we're looking into that. We have an AI team that's kind of at the frontier of innovation here. And we're doing that under the hood as well, right? Like to Joanna's point, right? There's a lot of things that are happening. Our philosophy is, we want to make it as easy as possible for you. And at the same time, right, if you have any other ideas, we definitely want to know. We definitely want to keep engaged with our customers because we're still a relatively new product, right? We're learning a lot from you just as much as you're learning from us.
Great.
I would add, we've published a lot of best practices just to help you. So when it comes to the data warehousing fundamentals, we published things like, hey, take advantage of star schemas, how you can build the star schema. Take advantage of, since this is an analytics system, right, batch ingests and ways that you can enable that using the different tools and ecosystems that are out there. So there's a lot of stuff available, but like Tino suggested, like Joanna mentioned, we're constantly shipping. So please let us know what you need, how we can help you, what your scenarios are, and like we're always listening.
What is the best way for, people on this chat or others watching, what is the best way for them to share feedback?
That is a great question. There's a couple ways that you can do it. The first is we have an in-product feedback tool. So whenever you're using the data warehouse, there's a feedback tab under the help capability. If I share my screen, I can show you. That's probably one. So let me just stop that and then share. So Okay, so I was doing the copy job, but let's go back and let's go to that data warehouse. You can see that in any data warehouse, we have a help tab and we have this feedback mechanism. So feel free and empowered to give us feedback whenever using the product of what we can do better. We read all of these and we look at it every week and we figure out how we can help you. The second thing we have is ideas. So if you go to ideas.fabric.microsoft.com, this is where we are actually looking at anything that you vote for or tell us that you need. So you can see here, we've got a lot of different categories, workloads, modalities they can choose. And when you do that, right, we're always looking at ideas. You can see we've already tagged some that are planned, many that are new, things continue to come. That's a second place. And then lastly, all the goodies that you are already familiar with, from things like Reddit to, Twitter, RIP, X, I guess what's what it's called today. But we are always looking at those forums too. So even things like LinkedIn, the team's pretty approachable. So you can always reach us directly, but those channels, the in-product feedback's number one, super easy to use. Second, Fabric ideas. And then lastly, Reddit, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc.
Great. So in the last 4 minutes here, we have one more question from Diego Zumaraga. Hi, everyone. How can I estimate the correct fabric plan according to my needs? So I think that it goes back to estimating the right SKU that you need, doing that sort of cost estimation. Anything you can shed light on this topic?
So one thing I mentioned earlier is we will be launching a new cost estimator tool very soon. And that's definitely one that can get you started. Another thing that Charles pointed out earlier is the trial capacity. I mean, that is just the best way to get started, to understand, if that, what capacity you're going to need to right size your workload. So I think those two are good landing spots to address that question.
Amazing. And so this discussion doesn't stop here, right? We are going to have an in-person event in FabCon. That's the Fabric Community Conference. It's coming up in Vienna. So we'd love for you to join us. And Charles, if you don't mind, bring up the slide for it in the deck, or I can. So we do have a discount code for all of you who have joined us today. Please scan this QR code to get that discount code. 15 to 18 September, we'd love to see you there. And for those of you in Europe, for those of you in the US, we do have a following Fabric Community Conference in the US next year. That's happening next year, early next year, sometime in March. And so we'll see you there. So with that, Aski, I think we've covered most of the questions that came live. I know there's still some questions that our experts in the chat are continuing to answer.
Oh, I apologize. I think I was on mute. So basically, I just want to thank the panel for an excellent session. I want to thank everyone for attending today. And we've gone ahead and put our feedback survey up. So we'd appreciate anything that you have to say, any thoughts about today's session. But with that said, we appreciate your time and have a great day.